Okay, here we go. Let's go. Okay, no preparation, no figuring out what I'm going to say or anything. Just go on live. So here we go. Okay, the topic today is everybody's favorite discussion: schizophrenia. Um, this is the holiday season. It's a new year. Happy New Year, everybody. If you haven't had a Happy New Year yet. Um, it's a time, sometimes they say on TV, there's a time when some people get depressed and have mental problems and stuff, but usually probably because of alcohol or something. But it's something that does happen, and I never consider myself a person that gets depressed. I'm not a person that gets depressed, but then again, I was never like a serious alcoholic or anything, because that does cause depression. But here we go. I did happen to get schizophrenia. Just like I caught rabies. I got rabies. I got malaria. I got schizophrenia. Anyway, I figured I'd talk about it a bit because I've been meaning to do a video, and for the longest time I didn't have any inspiration or anything. And this guy asked me something on YouTube and said, he said, "You're not cured." He said, "You're not cured. You still got it, and it's never going to go away." So I wanted to investigate that. We'll go look at what he said and see what's going on with that. Let's go to the add screen share and all that stuff. There we go. We'll go over here. And we'll go over here. Okay. So this is the comment here. It says, "You weren't cured." And this is in the description as well. "You were not cured. The symptoms just disappeared momentarily," he means. "They can reappear if the conditions are right, but I hope that it never happens." So giving me a good prognosis there. Says symptoms never go away, they just disappear, or for a while. But they could come back at any time. So this is my response. I said, "The symptoms of schizophrenia just don't go away. I had to ignore them. I had to rethink everything that I was believing. Because I didn't know if he was just saying that, just, for whatever reason. It didn't look like he was trying to be mean, but it's just more of a matter of fact statement. So then this is his response here. It says, "The symptoms, they do go away if you do something, like you did, for example. But unfortunately, you are not cured." Unfortunately, you're not cured. They're just hidden until something big enough would trigger them again. And again, I hope you stay well for the rest of your life. Of course, I can laugh now, but it wasn't funny when I had the symptoms, So I was thinking, well, it is kind of a matter of fact statement that people are not actually cured. I mean, nobody has ever been really fully, completely, 100% cured. But I don't have symptoms anymore, so there's that. So anyways, because I know what the symptoms are. And ironically, when someone is entering psychosis or becoming psychotic with schizophrenia, for example, they don't realize what's happening. They don't realize that it's happening as it's happening to them. Happens over and over and over again. They don't realize that their mind is not working. It's becoming, what do you call it, tunnel vision, not literal tunnel vision, but one-track mind, and they can't see anything else. They can't see anything else. Anyway, so I gave him a thumbs up here because I thought, because he came back and didn't backtrack any. He says they're just hidden. The symptoms are just hidden until something big enough would trigger them again. And again, I hope you stay well for the rest of your life. So I made a big, long response to him. And I went through and I gave him all the details of what happened to me. So here we go. Read more. So this is Jungle Jargon's response to the statement, because he's clearly, it doesn't look to me like he's trying to be mean or anything. He's just saying what the facts, generally are, what the facts are. So yeah, so I gave him a thumbs up, and this is my response to him. Okay, I turned around and said, you bring up a good point. It's not like they left entirely. It's not like the symptoms left entirely. The hallucinations, delusions, the grandeur, and all that stuff. It's just that they are powerless since I ignore them. So I said, I'll tell you what happened. I'll tell you what happened. I was in Chicago at a Jews for Jesus Bible study, and the teacher of the Bible study, who's no longer there, well, he's since passed away, his name was Jan Moskowitz, and I just had to vent, so I got into a heated discussion with him. I got into a heated discussion with the Bible teacher. Forget the topic, but I was just venting. As I was having the discussion, so I'm, having a big discussion there. And before I went and talked to him, it was like I was invisible to him. His name's Jan Moskowitz. He passed away, but passed away at a young age, but at least it seemed to me. But and it wasn't anything against him per se, except for the fact that I was just invisible to him. But when I started, I took him aside or went aside to talk to him and started talking to him, is all of a sudden I appeared there in front of him, just suddenly appeared in front of me, and all of a sudden I was there, a person in front, because I don't know if but I'm from the Amazon. I'm a shy Amazon creature, you might say. But of course, Jan Moskowitz was not a shy person. He was like, very, very outgoing personality, all this stuff. And that's why I was invisible to him, because I never showed any emotion or anything. So then when I did start talking to him, is all of a sudden I was a person, I was somebody. Even regardless of what I was saying, I was probably just saying a bunch of whatever, might have been gibberish or nonsense, but I was just venting, right? So as I was having this discussion with him, in Chicago, the hallucinations backed off. It's like they disappeared into the woodwork. I was wondering where they had gone. I thought that was a strange because it took a while for them to return. So what happened is when I went there to the Bible study, I was having I was hallucinating. I was having I had like a control panel in front of me and all this knobs and buttons and stuff. You work whatever, and that all just vanished all of a sudden, and I was wondering what happened to them. So slowly and steadily, it's like they got spooked. It's like they had a personality. It's like they had a personality, and they got spooked, and they just they went off into the woodwork. I was like, where are they? Where'd they go? I'm a schizophrenic. Where's my hallucination going? So anyway, I thought that was strange because it took a while for them to return. Slowly and steadily, they returned. So I got to thinking, what if I ignored them and didn't believe they existed? What if I just didn't believe in them? If they're hallucinations and they're not real, then treat them as such, right? Treat them as not being real. So, because it's a literal torment, schizophrenia is a literal torment 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, nonstop, even while you're sleeping. Even in your dreams, you wake up, they're there, nonstop, 24/7. So I had to do something to get better. I just had to do something. I had to get better. I couldn't stay like that. It was torment. It was, even came to physical torment, because there was this one hallucination that kept poking me in the eye. It was like poking me in the eye, and it poked me so many times, my eye literally hurt. It actually began to hurt. So psychological and everything, but it actually was literally hurting as many times as he was poking me in the eye. So anyway, this is what I did. Every time the hallucination occurred, I paid no mind to it. It's kind of hard when he's poking in your eye, right? It's not that easy. I just acted as if it didn't exist, and I ignored it. Of course, I didn't become cured overnight. Okay. I didn't become cured overnight because I had to change virtually every habit of thought that I had developed since I was a child. So, as a child, you get these things in your mind, your understanding, the way you understand this and that, and it develops, and then you start thinking, oh, well, this, and that, and this. So every time you're exposed to a situation, your mind floods you back with all these thoughts that you've already considered before. It's like, oh, this is this, that's that, all that stuff. All that had to be erased. All of that had to be changed. So I didn't become cured overnight because I had to change virtually every habit of thought that I had developed since I was a child. All the telepathy, everything had to go for the sake of my sanity. I stopped doing miracles, stopped casting out demons, doing miracles and stuff, no matter how convincing they were. Some people ask me what kind of miracles I did. It's just stupid miracles, whatever. I did so many miracles, I got tired of doing miracles. So this, I don't go for these healings very much. these whatever you call it. Oh, it's a miracle. It's a miracle. Because I did so many miracles, it's just I got fed up with it. Anyways. And some of them, I mean, a lot of them were very, very convincing. The telepathy is very convincing. You know, I was talking to people, reading their thoughts, reading their minds, and talking back to them, and they would like react and all that stuff. You know, but for the sake of my sanity, I stopped doing the miracles, no matter how convincing they were. Over a period of a year, the symptoms stopped happening because they lost their power over me. It's the reason why I recovered in only a few years of having the illness, right? But like I say, or like he said, I fully expected them to return, but they never did. I fully expected the symptoms to return, but they never did. I am now able to control my thoughts instead of having my thoughts control me. So this is where you want to be. You don't want to be controlled by thoughts, by what people say, what you hear, or what you imagine. You don't want to be controlled. You want to control your thought. You have to control your thoughts. Your thoughts cannot control you, because that's not freedom. That is, and in the case of schizophrenia, that's, literal torment, day and night torment. So I tell him, I don't know who he is, but he seems to know what he's talking about. So I said, I'm a good case for study for doctors, but the doctors all seem to run from me. I'm good case study, but all the doctors, they all seem to be running from me. They don't want nothing to do with me. They're, I don't know, afraid of their career or something. I don't know. They don't want anything to do with me. So anyways, that was my response to him. I thought it was a good response. I mean, I thought his response to me was good, because he came out and made a statement, and he stuck to it. He says, you weren't cured. The symptoms just disappeared. They can reappear if the conditions are right, but I hope that never happens. See, there's no malice. There's no nothing. It's just a matter-of-fact statement. So I don't know who he is, so I just responded. I said, the symptoms of schizophrenia just don't go away. I had to ignore them. I had to rethink everything I was believing. So he came back and said, they do go away if you do something like you did, for example. So he does know what's going on. He does know what schizophrenia is and how it is and everything. But unfortunately, you are not cured. They're just hidden until something big enough would trigger them again. And again, I hope you stay well for the rest of your life. And I hope so too. Because I was cured by 1985, except for years later, years after that, I was fully expecting to have psychosis again, fully expecting to become schizophrenic or showing symptoms and schizophrenic again. But since I ignored the hallucinations as not being real, they don't scare me. They don't scare me, and they don't enslave me. So that's the difference. And not everybody is able to do that, obviously, because 99.9% of schizophrenics have never, gotten to the level where I am, where I don't have any more symptoms. And it's not easy. I know it's not easy because I was there. I know what it is. And I'm one of the very, very few people who have fully recovered without medication, without counseling, without exercise and supplements and all this stuff, even though I do take supplements now. But but I totally recovered. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to talk to Greg, just so this is one sounding board right here, which I'm saying is accurate. This comment here, because most, there's hundreds of comments on this one thing, or there's a whole bunch of threads that there's a bunch of comments, but this one here is one of the very few people or few comments that shows that they understand what the condition is, apparently without being schizophrenic, or maybe he is, I don't know. But it doesn't seem like it. Doesn't seem like it. But anyways, it's just very coherent, very straightforward, and I don't know. I was impressed. So I wait a minute. Why is it not showing? I must have unclicked it or something. Oh wait, maybe it's the other one. It was this one I clicked. Yeah, this one I clicked. I'll go ahead and click this one too. So anyways, yeah, so what I wanted to do was I wanted to get another sounding board to see let's see what Grok would say with it. So let's go to Grok here. Before we do, let's go back over here, see what's going on. No, nothing there. Nobody there yet. Okay. All right, so happy New Year's, happy holidays. Don't be depressed. Don't be disturbed. So here we go. I got to ask Super Grok a question here. So I say, someone said, someone said to somebody, you weren't cured of schizophrenia. The symptoms just disappeared. They can reappear if the conditions are right, but I hope that never happens. Let's see. Is this a true statement? Is this a true statement? Now here's a sounding board. This is the best sounding board you could ever get, probably. So let's see what Grok has to say. Super Grok. I figure I'd try it out, see if it's worth it. Anyway, yes, statement is largely accurate according to current psychiatric understanding and research. We're all learning together here. We're all learning together here. Nobody knows anything more than anybody else. We're just all learning together, except people have different experiences, that's all. Yes, the statement is largely accurate according to current psychiatric understanding and research. Schizophrenia is considered a chronic mental health condition with no known cure. Major organizations and sources, including Mayo Clinic, American Psychiatric Association, National Institute of Health, Mental Health Relations, publications consistently describe it as lifelong, manageable, that's what they want to say, with drugs and counseling and money and more money, rather than curable. This is why doctors don't want nothing to do with me. Even though I'm a good case study, they want nothing to do with me. They're afraid of me, which is not a good thing for them. Treatments, primarily antipsychotic medications, therapy, and support. Now, let me just go ahead and say here, there are severe cases of schizophrenia. I'm not saying that mine wasn't severe. I had visual and auditory hallucinations and uh, delusions of grandeur, doing miracles, all this stuff, right? And this was for a period of about 3 years. So, because there's things that happen, similar things that happen to people, but they snap out of it within a few months or something, or weeks or months or whatever. But schizophrenia is different. Schizophrenia is permanent. For all intents and purposes, it's permanent. Okay, treatments, we know about 30% effective control system can effectively control symptoms. Yeah, and like I said, some people need it. Because if they're scratching their eyeballs out or banging their head against the wall or attacking somebody, they need attention, immediate attention. Of course, I was fortunate to have been raised with the Word of God, and the Word of God was my light, my inspiration, my light. It was all along. I mean, I was a Christian all along. I was raised on the mission field, and my whole thought process was in Christian teaching, with a little skew here and there, a little bent here and there, which made me susceptible to schizophrenia somehow. You know, it's environmental factors, it's genetic, it's pressure, a whole bunch of things, all of which I had. Effectively control. Okay, this is known as remission. But then there's psychosis. When after you have remission, there's psychosis, and it comes back. The consensus definition of symptomatic remission in schizophrenia proposed by the Remission in Schizophrenia Working Group in 2005. Wow, 2005. Wow, that's not. When I found out I had schizophrenia in 1984, around about there. Or 85. Might have been 85. But I was in England at the time watching a documentary, and the documentary was about schizophrenics, and then I had been recovering by what I was doing, what I said previously, you know, ignoring the hallucinations and stuff. But I didn't realize that it was called, I didn't even know it was called schizophrenia, what I had. Because in Chicago, they took me to the doctor. The doctor said I had to take medication. I refused. They didn't tell me what I had or what the medication was or anything. I just refused because they gave me the alternative. They gave me an option that I said, what kind of option is that? And they said, what do you mean, what kind of option is that? But they said, they gave me the ultimatum. Either you stay here, take medication, keep going to the olive tree congregation, Messianic congregation, Christian Messianic congregation, or you go back home to your mama. I said, what kind of choice is that? I'm not going to take the medication. So I didn't know what the diagnosis was. I didn't know what the medication was or anything. And unfortunately, there was a member of the Olive Tree congregation who was, you might say, wealthy, had an inheritance. And he volunteered to take me back to New Jersey. And so that would be, what would that be, 1980 something. Because it was 1980 something, I don't know. Because it was 82 when I joined the Army. And I had 1 year in basic training, basically, and 1 year in AIT. And during that time is when I got better, because I joined the Army hallucinating. I was still hallucinating, but I was working on ignoring the hallucinations. But anyway, and I went through, of course, when I went to join the Army, I went through the medical exam, everything. They asked me if I was hit in the head as a kid. I said, yeah, probably could have been, probably. But I also had, I took an aptitude test, which is basically an IQ test. And I aced the test. They said it's the highest possible score. So apparently, according to what they said, I had the highest IQ score possible. And that was in like grade school. It was like just before 9th grade, like before that time, 8th grade or something. But yeah, and I was hitting the head before that. But anyways, yeah, so I went to the school, because you had to go and they would tell you your score. You know, had to like counsel you or whatever. So I went there, and they were looking at me, looking at the test results, and it's like they saw a ghost. It's like they'd seen a ghost. And I said, well, what's the matter? Well, what's my score? I said, there's no score. An aptitude test doesn't give you a score. What was it? An A, B, C, 90%, 95%? No, they actually said it was the highest possible score. Anyways, it is what it is. And that might have helped me recover from this disorder too, for that matter. I don't know. But anyways, yeah. Okay, so proposed by the Remission Schizophrenia Working Group in 2005. And it was 2002 that I joined the Army. I mean, 1982, a little bit dyslexic, 1982 that I joined the Army. 82 to 86, that's 4 years. Okay. Requires that core symptoms such as delusions, hallucinations, disorganized thinking, gibberish. Speak a lot of gibberish. I went to the, I was employed by someone that went to the congregation. So I went to the congregation because of issues, problems, or whatever at work. The foreman fired me, and I walked off the job. And because the reason he fired me was because I was doing miracles and stuff. He was a little bit high strung. I remember his name. a little bit high strung. He was short, stocky, a little bit high strung, and so he would be like raking. He'd be like raking. So I anticipated his moves, his motion, his raking moves. It's like he would do this and he would do this, but I anticipated every one of his raking moves doing exactly the same as he was doing. And he threw the thing down and ran away. And anyways, he was frustrated. He fired me on the spot. So I said, okay, whatever. Then the boss found out about it. He said, no, you're not fired. You're not fired. But anyway, so I went and talked to his wife, and she was a Jewish person, but apparently familiar with things like schizophrenia. So she goes and asks me some questions. So I'm sitting there. She's looking in my eyes, looking at my face, looking at my eyes. And she looking straight in my eyes like this. My pupils are like dilating like this in real time, like going like this, opening and closing the pupil. The black parts of my eyes were like going open and close real time. You could visibly see it. And incidentally, there's a test where you can test to see if somebody's lying, because their pupils will dilate, but you can't see it, but you can see it with a machine. The machine can pick it up if somebody's lying. But in case of schizophrenia, if everything is a lie, I guess it just goes berserk, whatever. So anyways, there's organized and negative symptoms, yeah. There's what they call positive symptoms and negative symptoms. In other words, these delusions, hallucinations, the disorganized gibberish is a positive symptoms, and then there's negative symptoms where you don't want to do anything or whatever. Okay, remain mild or low for at least 6 months. Okay, that's what remission is. Remission rates vary, yeah. And sometimes maybe you'll be in remission for a week or so, or not you, or not me. But I've seen where people are don't even go into remission, hardly. But anyway, that's another story. Remission rates vary, but are essentially around 30-60%. With treatment, higher in first episode cases. So in other words, they dose the person with medication, and then they start acting a little bit normal, and then where maybe they can start changing their thinking process, changes enough to where they can, cope or be reasonable or whatever. At least for a few weeks or months or whatever. However, remission does not mean underlying vulnerability to the disorder has disappeared. Symptoms can reemerge, elapse under certain conditions, such as stressful life events, discontinued medication, which is usually what happens. Oh, I don't need this medication no more. I don't need that medication. And it works for a couple of days. Substance abuse, poor adherence to treatment. Relapse is common. Studies show high rates, often 50 to 80% within a few years if medication is stopped. So relapse is common, 50 to 80% within a few years if medication is stopped, even after prolonged remission. And it can sometimes occur abruptly with limited warning signs. Like I said before, when a person is going into psychosis, that's what they call it, the person is totally unaware of his condition. totally unaware. He thinks he's totally sane, and just goes off the deep end. While some people achieve long-term stabilities or even functional recovery, good social, occupational, functional alongside with symptom control. By the way, speaking of that, I had a number of different jobs, but it was because I was going from a lower paying job to a higher paying job, and sometimes back down to a lower paying job, but it just with the idea of getting a better job. So when I got the job at the airport, I kept the job, stayed working at the job at the airport as a maintenance worker, ground service technician, ground service mechanic. I kept that job for 30 years, and I retired with a pension. So it's not no small achievement for schizophrenic. The risk of symptom reoccurrence persists for many, which is why ongoing management is typically recommended. Counseling, monitoring, all this stuff. The hopeful part of the statements, I hope that it never happens, aligns with the fact that many individuals with schizophrenia live fulfilling lives with proper treatment. That means if you keep taking your medication. And relapses can often be prevented or minimized. The phrasing, symptoms just disappeared, reflects remission accurately, distinguishing it from a cure. So, according to this, I've been in remission since 1985. I held a full-time job, retired with a pension after 30 years, and now I'm retired. So it's not bad for remission, not bad. So now, so what would you say? No, that would be too hard because Grok is not a real person, so he can't think. He can only repeat. He's only a reflection. He can only repeat like a parrot what the consensus or what the study is. So I won't pick on him and ask a dumb question like, well, what if the remission has been since 1985? You wouldn't know how to answer that. But anyways, maybe I can answer. You might blow a fuse or something. I don't know. So let me ask a better question here. Let me see. So what are the percentages? As I say, okay, ask this. What are the percentages of people, what do you call them, patients since 1985? That's a good question, because then that way I can just give you back a percentage. So grammar. What are the percentages of patients having a remission since 1985? Where'd it go? Okay. Ooh. Remission rates in schizophrenia are very rarely studied due to differences in definitions. Symptoms, severity, including first episode, chronic, multi-evident follow-up through age treatment. Anyways, okay. Pre-2005, roughly 1985 to, yeah, that's 1985. 85 to 2004. Older long-term studies often use broader or less standardized definitions. 85 estimate complete clinical repellent around. Oh, a key review by Richard Warner estimated complete clinical recovery. I thought you said it doesn't happen. Around 20 to 21%, with higher rates in first episode cases, greater than 21%. Overall, good outcomes, including remission, like states, were lower than in modern studies, reflecting less consistent treatments. I'm going to have to redefine the question probably. Symptomatic remission. So, oops. 1985. Counseling, not counseling, or medication. You aren't saying that a person who was schizophrenic for 3 years recovered in 1985 without counseling or medication. Category. Category of about 20%. You aren't saying that a person who was schizophrenic for 3 years and recovered in 1985 without counseling or medication is in the category of about 20% of those. Because I don't think Grok understood the question. I don't think he understood the question. 1985 to 1925. Was that 4 years? 40 years, right? Yeah, 40 years. The 2025 is 40 years. A 40-year remission. Oh, come on. 40. You're not saying that a 40-year remission is that common. Oops, come on. It's a crazy thing. Well, okay, see what Grok says now. Oh, I'm going to get two responses now. Look at this. Response B, response A. Which response do you prefer? I like it when it gives two responses. No, that's not at all what I'm saying. 40 years sustained remission, full recovery without medication. Someone diagnosed with schizophrenia, which I was diagnosed with it. I had the diagnosis, I had the prescription or the medication all ready for me to go. Okay, see, we'll go with A first. See what A says. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. Let me clarify. Hold on a second. Make it so that's readable, legible. That's not what I'm saying at all. Let me clarify directly and honestly based on evidence. A 40-year remission without medication is extremely... Okay, well, that's the question I was asking. Not common. Studies show that sustained remission, no symptoms for years without ongoing medication is possible, but happens in only a small minority of cases, typically less than 10 to 15%. Now, it's still a high percentage. Over a decade. Now I'm kind of curious. Now I want to know how many people have actually recovered with no more symptoms. No symptoms. With no symptoms. That's what I want to know. Why is it 10, 50% still too high? For a full 40 years, documented cases are even rare. Oh, well, that's the question I'm asking. Damn it. Often just isolated reports rather than common outcomes. Why rare? Schizophrenic is usually chronic. Yeah. Without medication, relapse rates are high within 1 to 2 years after stopping meds. Okay. Spontaneous remission, symptoms fading naturally does occur in about 20-25% of unrelated cases. But after they spend a lifetime of misery and torment, it tends to subside when they get older. Yeah. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about somebody who's had the symptoms for 50 years. I'm talking about somebody who had symptoms and recovered and untreated cases in the first year. Okay. In about 20 to, okay, so the percentage is higher. Untreated cases in the first few years, but long-term stability without meds drop sharp. Okay. Okay, pre-1985 untreated cases. In older cases like Warner's 1985 review, 20 census data, 20 people recovered fully without treatment. Yeah, but after a long time. See, this is what he's messing up. After a long time of being, uh, all messed up for a lifetime. I still had my whole lifetime ahead of me, and I lived out my whole entire lifetime without being symptomatic or whatever. Recovery here meant no symptoms for 5 to 10 years, not 40. Many still had relapses later. Well, what are you don't understand English or what? Modern long-term studies, 1985, 1925, okay. Meta-analysis, 20, 40-year follow-ups, only 10, 20% full recovery, no symptoms, plus good functioning overall, and most of those needed, most of those needed meds. But it's not a full recovery. I don't know. In never treated groups, rarely today, recovery rates are similar or slightly lower, 5 to 15% in Ethiopian study over 3 years. And long-term data is scarce because untreated cases often worsen. Now, this is their claim. Untreated cases often worsen, but it's also a fact that unmedicated patients are better in the long run, which is probably being covered up by the consensus. Specific to 40 years, a few case reports exist. One woman in remission 50 years plus years via diet changes or isolated spontaneous cases, but no large studies show this as typical. In a 20-year U.S. study, Harrow, only 30-40% went med-free at some point, and just 5 to 10% stayed recovered without any meds long term. That's still a high number. Still a high number. Yeah, I'm not believing that number. Okay, well, yeah, he gave one example that's just a case study. It's not a percentage. Gave one example. It's not even a case study. I mean, it's not even a study. It's just a case study. Early mild onset. First episode cases have been better chance. Okay. Spontaneously 1 to 2 years. First episode cases have better chances, according to the medication experts. But medication has side effects. I guess maybe some of the medication now doesn't have as much side effect. Okay, strong support. Family, low stress, healthy lifestyle. But then again, the family can't be walking on eggshells. Family can't be walking on eggshells for the sake of this individual who's volatile. Low stress, healthy lifestyle, exercise diet like ketogenic in some reports, resilience, high personal coping skills or anti-authoritarian, defying treatment. People who defy treatment correlate with better outcomes in some studies. See? Resilience. Well, wait a minute. What's the saying? High personal coping skills or anti-authoritarian traits defying treatment correlate with better outcomes in some studies. Now, if that's not a contradiction, I don't know what is. No substance use, drugs, alcohol worsen prognosis. But hope is real. With or without meds, most recover with help. About 40-60% achieve remission with meds. Therapy, 20-30% live fully functional lives long term with meds. Without meds, possible but risky. This is the thing here. It's possible but risky. Well, depending on the severity, depending on the disposition of the patient, disposition of the person. If symptoms fade naturally, tapering under doctor supervision can work for some, 10-20% in first episode cases. But stopping abruptly often leads to relapse. I was just straight schizophrenic for like 3 years, about 3 years. It wasn't no in and out or hospitals or anything like that. Your example, a 3-year illness in 1985 resolving without meds, counseling puts them in a rare 20% spontaneous recovery group initially. Maintaining for 40 years without reason is exceptional, not average. Congrats to them. It's inspiring proof it's possible. Well, that's the thing. The way I feel about it, I'm happy and all for myself, but there's a lot of people, the majority of people are not going to be able to say they have even recovered with no symptoms. The only reason why I don't have symptoms is because if there was a symptoms, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't affect me. So why have a symptom if it's not going to be of any purpose or use? Congrats to them. It's inspiring proof. Okay. If this is about you or someone else close, talk to a psychiatrist about monitoring without meds if stable. Recovery is achievable. Many live amazing lives. Focus on what works for you. Therapy, support, lifestyle. There's always hope. If you share more details, I can tailor advice. Prefer this response. We got another. I forgot we got another response. Let's see the key points on the other one. Wait a minute. I just want to know if it's the same percentages. It's got to be the same percentages. 20%. Hold on a second. 20%, 5 to 15 years, 18 to 35%, 7 to 20%. These are it's still way too much as far as I can tell. So let me ask you another question then. Okay. Med-free. I was asking for a friend. I was asking for a friend. Okay. Okay. Well, the person who was hallucinating for 3 years, thinking he was God, and then thinking he was the devil going to hell. Began what if he began ignoring, not believing the symptoms in 1985? And what if that person later retired after 30 years with a pension working at a high security airport? I don't think Grok is understanding the question. Would you say that is common? No, I'll put it like this. How many people do you know who can say and prove such a thing? So I'm asking for a friend. What if the person who was hallucinating for 3 years, thinking he was God and thinking he was the devil, going to hell, well, doing miracles, thinking he was God, then thinking he was the devil and going to hell, began ignoring I'll put a comma there, began ignoring and not believing the symptoms in 1985 and later retired after 30 years with a pension working at a high security airport. How many people do you know who can say and prove such a thing? Question mark. Because I don't think Grok understood the question. Rare cases, hallucinations. You gotta explain. You gotta explain the Grok. You gotta explain it. 15 seconds, 16 seconds, 17 seconds, 18 seconds, 19. 24 seconds. Some of the questions I've asked Grok took minutes, like 16 minutes, some of them, or something like that. Crazy amount of time, but I guess this is better. It's improved, maybe. Such a scenario, experiencing severe psychotic symptoms, hallucinating, grandiose delusions like performing miracles or being God and the devil, and intense fears of hell for 3 years, then achieving full remission by essentially ignoring, disbelieving the symptoms starting in 1985 without any medication or professional counseling, which is what I said, I forgot to include, following by 30 years of stable, high-functioning employment in demanding role like high-security airport job, driving in between aircraft with a wrecker, with a tow truck, driving a tow truck between aircraft, and retiring with a pension represents an extraordinarily rare outcome in schizophrenia or similar psychotic disorders. So I don't think he understood the question, so you got to explain it. Got to explain it to him. Based on long-term studies and case reports, spontaneous full recovery without treatment over decades is documented where? Show me the documentation. But occurs only in a tiny fraction of cases, often estimated at 5 to 15%. Still way too high for us. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's that many without medication, without counseling. I don't think so. I don't think there's any. I mean, if there is, maybe I'd like to meet the person. We're gonna have something in common to talk about. For context, meta-analysis of outcomes 20 to 40 years shows overall recovery rate symptom-free plus good social occupational functioning around 10-20% in schizophrenia spectrum disorders, but the vast majority involves some form of antipsychotic medication therapy or support at point along the way. I had zero support every step of the way. Zero support. And it's not like I didn't have run-ins with my boss at work either. They took us both in one time and wanted to know who to fire first, the boss or me. And they asked me, well, you want him to be fired? I said, well, to be honest, if he was fired, I'm afraid who we might get worse than him. That's what I told him. Untreated cases, because he was a mechanic, he did understand mechanics, you know. Especially with longer initial duration of untreated psychosis, like they ended up firing him, not me, are strongly associated with proper long-term. As a matter of fact, I've seen those bosses come and go. They asked me if I wanted to be a manager or in charge, and as many people I've seen come and go, no, not a chance. Nope. Especially with a longer initial duration of untreated psychosis, like 3 years, are strongly associated with proper long-term outcomes, including higher relapse risk and functional impairment. Well, see, that's the thing. You're totally impaired. You're totally dysfunctional or not functional. You can't hold a job. You can't have a relationship of any kind. You can't earn a living. And I always thought it was a good thing for me to recover because then I wouldn't have to be supported by taxpayer money. Of course, if I'm supported by taxpayer money, that means I basically lost my freedom because I can only do as prescribed or directed. And I've seen people like that. They get their little monthly check to pay for their rent, and that's about it. I didn't want to live like that. That's why I'm retired with a pension now. because I valued my freedom. I valued my ability to make my own decisions and make my own mistakes and do what I want and pursue my goals and objectives. Okay. I don't know personally, as I'm AI, but from psychiatric literature and documented reports, there are only a handful of well-verified examples of long-term 30-plus year spontaneous recoveries without any interventions. For instance, there we go. A few case studies. Now, these are case studies, not necessarily group studies. A few case studies describe individuals with chronic schizophrenia enter remission through lifestyle changes like ketogenic diet, achieving symptom-free status for years without meds, but these often start after initial treatment attempts and don't always detail ultra-high functioning careers. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, historical figures like John Nash, mathematician portrayed in The Beautiful Mind, experienced periods of, but this is after many, many years. This is after many, many years. Not somebody who just said, oh, I'm just not going to believe in this symptoms no more. Okay, The Beautiful Mind experienced periods of untreated remission after initial hospitalizations. Okay, see, after initial hospitalizations and meds, managing systems through rational dismissal, similar to ignoring and not believing. And he returned to a productive work for decades. However, his case involved some early interventions and wasn't entirely untreated from the start. That's what I'm saying. And he spent many, many years in that condition. Rare reports from long-term follow-ups in the Chicago follow-up study by Harrow et al. Note about 5 to 10% of participants achieve recovery without meds over 15 to 20 years, with some extending longer. But high security jobs would require exceptional resilience and no relapses, which is uncommon. You don't say. No kidding. Okay. In some developing countries, the WHO studies from 1970s to 1990s suggest higher spontaneous recovery rates, up to 34% over 10 to 15 years, due to strong community support, less stigma, potentially allowing functional lives without formal treatment. But 40-year data sparsely and rarely includes proof like pension records, security clearances. Yes, and I did have a security clearance to work at the airport because I lived through 9/11 right across the river. I saw the buildings fall down. I mean, I didn't actually see them fall down. I saw them there, and then they weren't there. And I was driving home in case somebody wants me to tell a story. I walked out of the building, Terminal C, Newark Airport, and I look over and I see smoke coming from one of the Twin Towers. So I'm thinking, well, how in the world did they start a fire up there? That's what I was thinking, How in the world they start a fire up there? I'm thinking, oh, that's probably a small plane. We're going to be hearing about this for months. This is my thought process. Well, we're going to be hearing about this about months. Airplane, I couldn't avoid the Twin Towers, ran right into the building. And so then I go into the break room, which is right there. It was right there at, a gate. Actually, no, it was No, it wasn't Terminal C. It was Terminal B, because Terminal C was being built. So it was Terminal B. We walked out of Terminal B. I mean, not Terminal B. It's all Terminal C. Never mind. I'm all messed up. It's all Terminal C, but it's gates like, I think it was like near gate 80. We had the break room. It wasn't gate 130. It was gate 80 or thereabouts. So I walk in the break room, and they had a TV. It was on TV, and they're looking at it. As we were watching the TV, the second plate hit the other building. As we were watching the TV, and then I turned around and said, because by that time I found out that it wasn't just a small plane; it was a commercial aircraft. Then when I saw the second one hit the building on TV, I was in the break room. It was right across the river from where we were. I said to myself, I said to other people, maybe it's World War III. This is World War III. So then, of course, they shut down the whole airport. All the flights were grounded, and the first building had already fallen, and we're driving out of the airport around 10 o'clock or so. Forget what time it was. I'm driving the van, mind you. I'm the one driving the crew out of the airport, and as we're driving on the service road, there's a road outside, which is outside the airport, with cars stopped along the way, and they're all looking over toward the building that's got smoke coming out of it. Like I said, the first building had already fallen, and they're watching the second building. It's got like fire coming out of it and everything, or smoke coming out of it. So I'm thinking, well, maybe I should stop. Well, I didn't stop because I'm driving a crew home. And so as we make the bend on the service road, which you couldn't see what was happening, as we made the bend going around the service road, it was right there in front of us, except the building was no longer there. The second building had fallen, and the column of smoke was still way up in there. There's no building there, and the column of smoke was right there. And one of my coworkers took a picture of it with the smoke coming from the building that wasn't there right after it had fallen, the second building. And I guess she still has the picture. I don't know. But anyways, her son was a professional wrestler. His name's Darren Young. That's his stage name, is Darren Young. I won't say what his real name is. But anyway, his mother took that picture because she was into photography, and she was into like meeting people that were well known up at the terminal. She would find out who was there, who's walking through the terminal. She'd go up and say hi to them and take pictures or whatever. She was into that. So she knows people, she knows people in Hollywood and stuff like that. And her son is Darren Young. And before anybody says too much, yeah, I know about Darren Young. You don't have to tell me. But anyways, yeah, it actually happened. So then we drove home, and at the time I was living in a coworker's basement for a few weeks or something. And I walk to like a corner store or whatever, and there was nothing. There was all the flights were grounded. The only flights that were flying were jets, military jets flying overhead. It was very surreal. So I walk into this corner store, and there was these kids there looking at a paper talking about the World Trade Center. The buildings were gone. And the kids didn't know anything about it because their teachers didn't even tell them anything. They didn't know anything about it. They were like, what happened? What happened? And I had to tell the kids, yeah, they're both down. They're both gone all the way down to the ground. They're both gone. So kids in school weren't even told what had happened. Just so, there's, people are afraid of the strangest things, But anyways, that was it for that story. True story. Potentially non-functionalized, but 40-year data is sparse. Okay, we got that. Proving such a thing definitively would be typically involve medical records. Witness account. Well, see, I never got a medical record. I just got a diagnosis. I was never treated medically for it. So I have no medical record. But I did get a diagnosis and a prescription, which I rejected. And like I said, my friend flew me back to New Jersey, which is another story. Backtrack to 1980. What was it? No, this is before I joined the Army. Okay, backtrack to like 1979 or whatever, 1980. I'm hallucinating the whole way. He flies me back to Newark Airport, mind you. The same Newark Airport that I worked for 30 years. So, but this is 1980 or something like that. So, might have been 81, but I'm hallucinating the whole way. The whole way I was hallucinating on the plane, talking with the personalities or whatever, the hallucination. I was talking with the hallucinations the whole way back to New Jersey. So we land at Newark Airport, the same Newark Airport, the same terminal, the same hallways. So we're walking through there, and we go over this these things where you cross over from one building to another, one part to another. There's cars going underneath or whatever. So we're walking along. I just walk along. He stops. My friend that brought me to New Jersey stops and looks out the window and looks down there at somebody working at the airport down below. So he says, "Come here." And I just kept on walking. So well, finally I came back. He says, "Come here, look at this." Because he knew I was a mechanic, and he knew that I wanted to be a mechanic and work mechanic. Of course, this is before I was in the Army. This is before I got training, before everything. So he looks down there, and we're looking at this tow truck. This guy's tow truck. He's working on a piece of equipment down there. It's called ground service equipment. We call it GSE for short. And he looks down there. He's like picking up a vehicle or something with a tow truck. And he says, look at that. You can do that work, right? I look down there. Say, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, that's no sweat, no problem. Little what I know that maybe 20 years later, or whatever, or however many years it was, 15, 20 years, whatever it was, I would be doing that exact same job for 30 years. But anyway, so he takes me home and everything. Then he goes back to Chicago. I stay with my parents, still hallucinating, wondering what in the world I had, what in the world was wrong with me, trying to figure out what's going on. Got a job at Great Adventure, Six Flags Great Adventure. Hallucinating, still hallucinating, working on the roller coasters. We had to walk the wooden roller coaster every day, check for debris or whatever, make sure everything is in shape. Then we had to ride the roller coaster, quite often too, make sure everything's good. So if we're gonna ride the roller coaster, we gotta better make sure it's good. So, anyways, I remember one time, I might have told this story before, but I was, like I said, still hallucinating, the whole 9 yards, whatever. And I was on break, and there was a girl there that sat with me because she didn't want to be sitting alone because of the guys that were hitting on her. So she sits with me. I was like, oh, okay. and I told her some gibberish, stupid stuff, whatever, because I was hallucinating or whatever. But it was, at least she wasn't afraid of me, or didn't seem to be afraid of me or whatever. Or maybe she wanted to get to know me or something. But anyways, I was just like, I was like speaking gibberish, all this stuff. So then I got another job working at a plant where they make trailers. So, like I said, my idea was to go from one job to another, better paying job, whatever. So now I'm a mechanic, as call it, a sheet metal mechanic, making tractor trailer trailers. So I did that for about a year or so, and then I joined the Army. Got my training, my MOS 63 whiskey. It's wheeled vehicle repair, which is the larger diesel trucks and even the Jeeps too. But the wheeled vehicle repair, not track, not tanks, just wheeled vehicle repair, which includes all the wheeled vehicles. So that was my MOS in the Army. Got my basic training in South Carolina, Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Went to AIT in Aberdeen, Maryland. Went to Fort Knox for a year. And that was 2 years. I enlisted for 4 years. Then I went to 2 years in Germany. It was when I was in Germany that I took my first vacation, went to England to meet some people I knew there from South America. They all went every which way, and they left me in the house by myself. And to this day, I don't know if I caused them a big TV bill or what, but I didn't have anything to do. I was looking at the TV. I didn't know how to turn the TV on. So I finally figured out, turned the TV on. I was watching a documentary, and the documentary I was watching was about schizophrenics, and that's the first time I knew what it was that I had. But by that time, I was on my way to recovery because I was implementing these practices where I would ignore the hallucinations, ignore the symptoms, the delusions and stuff like that. So I was well on my way. By 1985, I was pretty much better, but like the guy said, it says, you could have a relapse, which I knew very well, even without knowing a whole lot about schizophrenia, I knew that I could have a relapse because that's just the nature of schizophrenia. But I was discharged in 1986. Everything's good. Got a job at a gas station. Worked for a Persian. By the way, it's a Happy New Year for Persians. Um, I guess it was a Sunoco station, something. Anyways, then I moved on to Newark because my idea was to have a ministry up in Newark, and this is a long time ago, um, with the Brazilian-speaking people. And that, since I spoke Portuguese, I would like perfect my Portuguese, speak Portuguese, work in ministry with with the Brazilian people and all of that, and but things don't turn out the way you want. Um, so I never did have a very good ministry or very say significant productive ministry, but God looks at the heart, and He knew my intentions. That how I basically gave up everything just to go have a ministry with the Brazilian people. So He took that into consideration and everything, and He took care of me as the Bible says. So then I worked from job to job, mechanic jobs, gas station, truck repairs, Ryder trucks at one point. Worked for Ryder trucks, Ryder, you know. And I worked for 1 year, but I was having like issues some with the place and everything, some other issues, um, but mostly with the coworkers, that they would, it's like an initiation process. For an initiation process, they would like steal your tools. And I mean, a 50th anniversary Mac impact gun, it was gone just because I left it on top of my toolbox. While I was still there, it just disappeared. Somebody took it. A hammer I used to hold an extension cord, somebody took it. A sledgehammer. And these people, their entertainment was at break time to read the newspaper. This is first shift. I was still on first shift. They would read the newspaper at break time and laugh at all the bad things in the newspaper. Laugh at all the, unfortunate people in the newspaper. And then I come to find out they're having cocaine parties. It's kind of like back in the day. It was Hertz too. It was the same thing. Hertz car rental. All they would do was have cocaine parties and stuff. And me, as a recovering schizophrenic, I wanted nothing to do with it. I said, this is crazy. I'm not going to go back doing that kind of thing. So I quit. I told the boss that I quit. And then he tried to convince me otherwise at Ryder Truck Rentals. And finally, when he knew that I was intent on quitting, he said, okay, I'll fire you. by firing mean that I could collect workers' compensation or whatever, unemployment. So I did collect unemployment for a couple of weeks or so or whatever, but then I got another job, of course. And I just kept switching from job to job. I worked at a Linden trucking company as repairing trucks. there was a there was somebody who was working there for 30 years. He was retiring that day, and he didn't know how to check the transmission fluid in an automatic transmission. And he said that I had checked the oil and the oil wasn't right. It was over full or whatever. Or whatever. No, he said it was under full. But he didn't know that the transmission has to be running when you check it. And after working 30 years and he retired that day, he didn't know how to check the transmission fluid, and he told somebody else that I had not filled it properly or checked it properly. But anyways, after about a year working there, they'd had a layoff. They laid me off. So then I went back working at a gas station as a mechanic, and I was like, going here and there. Then somebody at church said, "Hey, you should go fill out an employment or an application to work at the airport," because somebody at church worked at the airport. So I said, "Hey, okay." So I went, fill out the application. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. I wasn't chosen. Wasn't selected. So then he comes back and says, "Hey, did you get hired at the airport?" I said, "No, they didn't hire me." So then he says, "Well, I'm going to go talk to that boss, make sure he hires you." Just to show that it wasn't my initiative that got me the job. It was all in God's plan. So he goes and talks to the guy, and he says, "Well, you have to go reapply, fill out the application again." So this time I fill out the application again, and I was hired. And when the guy hires me, he's telling me how good the other guy was that he hired instead of me. But he was a problem. I had run-ins with him too, and got in discussions with him, and but he was gone after a while. He was a manager that was gone after a while too. One of the many managers that were there and gone. And I was there 30 years and retired, when the pandemic hit. But anyways, that's about it, I guess. Okay, perhaps fewer than 1 in 1,000 diagnosed cases based on aggregate data, making it a powerful testament to a personal resilience. Factors like strong willpower, low stress, supportive environment, or even misdiagnosis. Well, see, this is the thing. It's not a misdiagnosis. Autoimmune psychosis mimicking schizophrenia. No, it wasn't no autoimmune psychosis because it was more than a couple of months, but resolving naturally could play a role. It's inspiring and aligns with the evidence that recovery is possible, even if unconventional. If they'd like to share their story anonymously through research channels, it could help others. That's the thing, but there's nobody wants to talk to me about it. Nobody wants to talk to me about it. Because all the doctors, they turn and run the other way when they see me. But there's NewYorker.com. I had schizophrenia, then suddenly she did an autoimmune psychosis. Oh, that's that's different. Yeah, no, that's not. She didn't have it for 3 years, and she didn't have to rewire her thinking. Every thought that I had to rethink every thought that I had. My habit, every habit of thought, when you have stimulus, you see something, you have thoughts, and you analyze it, whatever. Every response that I had, every response that my mind had, I had to rethink it and rewire every single thought that I had, which, obviously took time. Okay. Okay, 1 in 1,000, more than 1 in 1,000 cases. But anyway, yeah. And the only reason why I no longer have symptoms is because, one, I had the Word of God, and I happened upon what I needed to do without counseling, of course, without medication, because otherwise I wouldn't even be thinking straight. And I had to trust my schizophrenic mind more than the mind of medical professionals. Just like you said in the other one, where he said rejecting authority sometimes has better outcomes. But anyway, yeah, I had to trust my own schizophrenic mind more than that of medical professionals, which obviously I didn't trust, which most people don't trust, but schizophrenics have to get used to the idea. They have to get used to the idea, nuts in my throat, where they learn to trust what other people say or what the doctor says as more valid than what they think or what they believe, because they can't trust their own mind, which is it's a bad position. Like, how can you live without trusting your mind? You have to depend on somebody else's mind to what to do, what to say, stuff like that. I mean, if somebody's interested, you can. I mean, there's a lot of schizophrenic videos on YouTube. I mean, there's just horrible situations. And I don't see any of them saying, "Oh, I recovered 100%, no delusions, no symptoms. I'm not having auditory hallucinations." Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to say. A lot of things I forgot to say, but when I first had the psychosis, what they call the first bam, it hits you, psychosis. I was sitting there in the living room, and I heard a voice. Not only did I hear a voice, but I saw in front of me, spelled out in letters, in color, what the voice was saying. So it's an auditory hallucination, visual hallucination, and then not too long after that, shortly after, well, I had one of the first hallucination was like I was on fire. It's like I wasn't literally burning, but I felt I was hallucinating like I was on fire, all enveloped in fire and everything. And what happened was this fire started closing around my eyes, and I was getting tunnel vision. I could only see tunnel vision. I wasn't able to see anything else around. So I go and sit down, and I put my head down to get blood to rush to my head, and it didn't make any difference. It wasn't a blood problem. It wasn't an oxygen problem. And I thought it was just going to close and keep closing. But I put my head down and I just waited and I prayed. And I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and then slowly started to open up. And then after a while, I could see again. And then I spent the whole night, and of course, hallucinate, talking with the personalities, uh, named I named one of them Moses. I named the other one Paul. And at first it seems innocent enough at first, but then after a while they tend to become abusive or whatever. Or there's other personalities that are abusive, whatever. So, but I didn't eat and I didn't sleep for 3 days and nights after that because I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't sleep. Didn't eat or sleep for 3 days and nights. On the third day, the owner of the building apartment complex told me that I needed to eat something. So I put something in my mouth, and that was it. I didn't actually eat. I just put something in my mouth and ate it, whatever. But then after the third night, I slept, like a fitful sleep. I might say, being woke up. Remember, I said the thing, I had one that was poking me in the eye all the time, and it was I slept, but it was I was being woken up by the hallucinations throughout the night. And I didn't go out. Obviously, I didn't go outside. I wouldn't go outside for like 4 days. Maybe on the fifth day, I got courage to go outside, and then everything was all weird. Everything's weird. People are walking in front of me and jumping in front of me and stuff, and it was weird. But anyways, which can all be explained probably one way or another. But yeah, and then that's when afterwards, I went to work and got fired, and then they called me in. They looked at my dilating pupils, or dilating right in front of them, real time, right in front of them. And so then they took me to the hospital. They said, "Hey, let's go for a ride." I said, "Oh wow." They're going to take me out to a restaurant. We're going to go eat, have a good time, and everything. And they stop at the hospital and say, "Okay, you got to go up and talk to the doctor." And if I didn't have a lot of self control, I would have objected. But I went up, talked to the doctor, told him all the gibberish, everything. He looks in my eyes, everything, you know. And that's when they gave me the diagnosis, which I rejected. And that's after that they took me back to New Jersey. Okay, and then the pandemic hit, and now I'm back here in Missouri. I just hope everybody had a good holidays, Christmas and New Year's. I spent Thanksgiving with my family in Kansas, and then I went to Jerusalem, or Israel, Tel Aviv. Went to Jerusalem twice, went to Haifa once, and 5 days is not very long. You can't see hardly anything, but I did see the city of David. Finally found the city of David because nobody even knew where it was. GPS didn't know where it was. GPS didn't even take me to the Wailing Wall. Anyway, and the GPS hardly works at all if you have an American account. Anyway, even if you pay extra for international, still it's better, not as bad, but Anyways, it's another story. And if you go to Israel, just be aware that the driving is pretty bad. Driving is pretty bad. And that's coming from me, which I like to drive and everything. But yeah, driving is pretty bad. Saw a bad accident, or didn't actually see it happen, but I saw the aftermath. It was a motorcycle. It was actually a policeman on a motorcycle. Had an accident. His motorcycle spread all over the road. It was on fire. It was burning. I saw from a distance fire going up. I said, whoa. You could see it going up. Smoke was going up really fast, so it wasn't far away. And he had just passed me, and then he fell or got knocked down or whatever in front of me. And the motorcycle's on fire. He was on the long side of the road rolling around, but he didn't look to be really hurt, really bad, but probably be hurting for a while. So anyway, that's about it. Story anonymously through research channels. Yeah. It's because I told him I'm asking for a friend. Because Grok says I need to get counseling and help. I'm like, well, I would like to counsel and help other people, but nobody wants to listen to me. Anyway, so much for that idea. Okay, if they'd like to share their story anonymously through research channels, it could help others. Yeah, of course it could help others. But there's not a whole lot you can do to help somebody that has schizophrenia. There's not. It's like, doesn't matter what you do, it's not going to help. Just get used to the idea. It's not going to help. Walking on eggshells is not going to help. They just might blow up. They might whatever. It's not going to help. There's not a whole lot you can do to help them. Basically, it has to come from them. They have to get the idea somehow. You got to get the idea to ignore the hallucinations. Because I have seen advice, people just give up and say, okay, well, that's just a part of your life now. You just talk to people that aren't there. You're talking to this thing, that thing, whatever it is. And it answers, you talk and it answers back. You have a conversation. Anyway. And that's why you're crazy. And that's what, is tormenting. Is you're tormented by your own thoughts, basically. Okay. Oh, there's one guy, this David Berkowitz, that I can think of. He's the son of Sam, person. And he used to listen to his dog. His dog would tell him what to do. So his dog, whatever his dog told him what to do, he went out and did it. So he went to prison. In prison, he found the Lord, found Jesus, and he became a totally different person. You can ask even the relatives of the people that aren't around no more because of him, and they will tell you he is not the same person. Because, of course, Jesus changed his life. He's still in prison, of course, but he sends Bibles all over the world, helps people. helps people that way. He has a ministry, sending Bibles all over the world, or he did, anyways. But of course, he can't get out of prison, so you never know if they have a relapse or something. But hopefully not. Hopefully not. Yeah, so that would be one example. That would be one. David Berkowitz might be one example because they say he might have had. So yeah, I wanted to ask Grok. Yeah, I would like to have specific examples. Okay, I'd like to have specific examples of Okay, without counseling or medication, I'm going to ask him about David Berkowitz. Um, Completely changed. Okay, see what Grok says about that. I want specific examples. I don't want this. 50% is a big number. I mean, 5%, 5 to 10% is a big number, and that's just not cutting it. Okay, yes, I would like to have specific examples of people who have recovered completely without counseling and medication. David Berkowitz might be example one. Okay, search David Berkowitz. Schizophrenia recovered without medication. 10 results. I don't know if he has medication. Oh, his schizophrenia diagnosis is debated. Okay, with some sources. Okay. Possible misdiagnosis or lack. Okay. But I want to know how many years. How many years was he like that? Without medication. 10 results. Without medication. Results. 55 seconds. 57 seconds. Yeah, I've had Grok thinking for a long time, asking about evolution and genomes and stuff like that. Verifying named recoveries. 1 minute and a half. So I want specific examples. Not this 5-10% nonsense. Rufus may recover. Okay. 1 minute 53 seconds. Going on 2 minutes maybe. All right. I don't know. I've been wanting to speak to a doctor, but like I said, the doctor's just running with me like I had a plague or something. They turn and run the other way. They want nothing to do with me because I didn't take medication. I didn't have any counseling. Didn't have no support group. Nobody hold my hand. And I'm a missionary kid from the Amazon jungle. 2 minutes, 47 seconds. Through writing, physical release. But it's all in changing the process. It has to do with changing the thinking process, no matter how you do it. Yes, there are documented examples of individuals who have achieved complete recovery or long-term remission from schizophrenia without ongoing medication or counseling, though such cases are rare and involve personal strategies like reframing experiences, lifestyle changes, or processing trauma. Complete recovery typically means no symptoms, right? No symptoms. Full functional independence, work relationships, no relapses as opposed to just remission. There you go. That's a good qualification as opposed to just remission. These stories are drawn from psychiatric literature, personal accounts, and interviews. Note that diagnosis can sometimes be evaluated. What appears to be spontaneous recovery might involve undiagnosed factors like trauma resolution. Regarding David Berkowitz, son of Sam Killer, his diagnosis of schizophrenia is debated. Some experts argued post-arrest that he didn't fully exhibit symptoms and may have exaggerated them for an insane defense. While he claims a profound religious conversion in prison led to behavioral change and remorse, there's no evidence of complete symptom remission without any intervention. There is evidence that he's not the same person, because even the families say that he was incarcerated with access to psychiatric evaluations. His case is more about criminal reformation than untreated schizophrenia recovery. Below are specific named examples that align closely with your criteria. Tracy Higgins, John Nass, Rufus May, Eleanor Long. These individuals often credit personal resilience, trauma. Okay. So that's 4 people? 5 people. Oh. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 4 people out of all the people who have schizophrenia. And the people that don't tell nobody, which is hard to verify. Tracy was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia age 14. That's early. That's rough. Though her symptoms began at 9 after severe trauma. She experienced intense hallucinations, seeing threatening figures, constant violent voices urging self-harm, leading to suicide attempts, overwhelming fear, and a sense of being trapped in another reality. And of course, the symptoms are not all the same symptoms with schizophrenia. They're going to be according to what that person, who that person is, or how that personality is of the person. Mental health services offered no effective help, and she avoided psychiatric drugs by faking ingestion. She received none throughout. Similarly, no counseling was provided or used. Recovery started in her early 20s when a triggering event resurfaced memories, prompting her to process emotions through intense self-directed method. But this is a severe case of traumatic event. Not to say that I didn't suffer trauma, but I had a lot of trauma myself, but I never consider myself depressed. recovery start. Okay. Acute psychosis resolved in about a month, with full recovery over several years. She'd been symptom-free for over 2 decades, worked in government, built a family, husband, adult children, and is authoring a memoir. The Girl on the Bridge. She wanted to commit suicide. She views her psychosis as trauma response, not brain disease, and advocates for non-medical recovery paths. Okay, so this arguably is not the same kind of schizophrenia. Now, it's very likely, very possible that the traumatic event could have initiated the schizophrenia, but it doesn't seem. I mean, it happened when she was, what? Her symptoms began at 9 with severe trauma. At 14, she was diagnosed and didn't take medication. In her 20s, she was triggered an event, resurfaced memories, prompting her to process emotions through intense self-directed mechanisms, writing, grieving, crying, physical outlets like pounding the bed with a plastic bat. I never did that. I never threw ink at the devil either. But anyways, that's another thing. Acute psychosis resolved in about a month. That's fast, with recovery over several years. Well, yeah, I was hallucinating for years after I was diagnosed. Okay, 2 decades. There we go. 2 decades is 40 years. No, 20 years. 2 decades is 20 years. Okay. I've been symptom-free for 40 years. John Nash, Nobel Prize-winning mathematician portrayed in A Beautiful Mind, was diagnosed with schizophrenic 1959, age 30. That's old. That is old. But I guess it's within the range, I guess. 20 to 25 is more common, I think, for men. Symptoms include paranoid delusions, believing he was being recruited for secret government work, auditory hallucinations, auditory social withdrawal leading to multiple. I had auditory and visual hallucinations, seeing what the words were saying, seeing spelled out in front of me what the words were saying. Anyway, maybe I'm special. I'm special. Leading to multiple hospitalizations, initial treatment, antipsychotic medicine, chlorpromazine. In the early 1960s, he stopped all medications around 1970. Without medical supervision and received no ongoing counseling. Nash attributed his gradual recovery to rational, rejecting delusional thoughts. There you go. Rejecting delusional thoughts, age-related hormone changes. Aging-related hormone changes, of course. 1985, I was still in the Army, so I wasn't undergoing any hormonal changes. Sheer willpower, essentially willing himself out of irrational thinking, which is essential. But I did it at a much younger age. By the 1980s, 1990s, symptoms fully remitted. He resumed academic work. Won a Nobel in 1994 and lived independently until his death in 2015, at the age of 86, with no further hospitalizations or relapses. His case is often cited as an example of spontaneous late life late life remission without meds, though he had brief early interventions. Right. Before that, he was hospitalized before that, or whatever. Diagnosed Rufus May, diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, age 18, 1986. Rufus experienced delusions, believing he was a spy on a mission. Auditory hallucinations, erratic behavior resulting in 3 hospital admissions over 2 years, doctors predicting lifelong medication dependency, but he rejected drugs after initial exposure, avoiding or discontinuing them, and used no formal counseling. Instead, he recovered through self-directed strategies, finding meaning in his psychosis. Yeah, there's no meaning in the psychosis. It's totally irrational. Viewing it as a response to personal rebellion and stress. Exercise, healthy diet, mindfulness, which is all good. Mindfulness, social connections, very good. Vocational pursuits like apprenticeship work. By mid-20s, symptoms resolved completely. By mid-20s, there you go. That's like me. What was be 19? That was 1985. I was 20 something. He's been symptom free for over 35 years. There you go. Became a clinical psychologist specializing in non-medical psychosis approaches. And advocates for alternatives like Hearing Voices Network. Hearing voices and seeing spelled out in front of you what the voices are saying. How about that? His story emphasizes empowerment and viewing psychosis as a meaningful experience rather than illness. Well, it is an experience, but it's an experience you don't want to have. Eleanor Longden was diagnosed with schizophrenic in her late teens while at university, experienced auditory hallucinations. See, the stress, I was going to school too at the time. Well, I dropped out of school, which is a stress. And I was working for 2 years after I dropped out of school, and it was like the second year that it happened. Experiencing auditory hallucination, voices commenting on her actions, escalating to threats, paranoia, and severe distress, leading to hospitalization and being labeled a hopeless case. She initially was forced to take high doses of antipsychotic medications, but discontinued them as she found them unhelpful and pursued no ongoing counseling. Yeah, there's not a whole lot that somebody can tell you other than to ignore and not believe in the hallucinations and delusions. Just don't believe them. Just ignore them. They're not there. They're not really there, so treat them as if they're not there. And they'll have no reason to be there. Recovery involved reframing her voices as metaphors for unresolved trauma, child abuse, learning to listen and negotiate with them through self-reflection and support from Hearing Voices movement. Symptoms fully remitted by her mid-20s. She still hears voices occasionally, but manages them without meds or therapy, viewing them as non-pathological. She's been in complete recovery for 20 years, earned a PhD in psychology, works as a researcher and TED speaker. TED speaker. Oh, I gotta look it up. Eleanor Longden. Well, maybe I've seen her. Okay. Learning voice. I probably have seen it. Her case highlights trauma-informed non-medical paths to recovery. HearingVoices.org. These individuals often credit personal resilience, trauma processing, or alternative perspectives, i.e., seeing psychosis as a meaningful crisis. It's not meaningful. It's not purposeful. It has no use or purpose. Just ignore it as if it doesn't even exist. It's like a lie. A lie doesn't actually exist. So don't believe it exists. Further outcomes. While inspiring, experts note that attempting recovery without professional support can be risky. Because you're trusting your own mind over a mind that's not having the issues that your mind's having. And most benefit from tailored interventions. If your friend relates to these, share their story anonymously, via platforms. Yeah, I'm doing it very anonymously, as if anybody cares. Via platforms like the Hearing Voices Network could contribute to research. Well, maybe I can go to the Hearing Voices Network if there's Hearing Voices Networks. But usually everybody on there is schizophrenic and they're irate and they get into arguments and like, who's going to believe what you're saying? Is I could try, but I've been on those platforms before, and you know, as if anybody cares. As if anybody cares. Doesn't affect them, so they don't want nothing to do with it. They don't want to be jeopardized by having anything to do with me. But I'm sure there's got to be somebody that's not worried about it, that's already doing it and stuff like that. Maybe I could try again. Okay, well, that's that. That doesn't seem like a... Okay, so here now I'm gonna corner Croc now. Croc. I'm gonna corner Croc. What? Inflicted. What isn't it? Schizophrenia is not a word. Anyway, what percentage is 4 people out of the number of people inflicted with schizophrenia? Oh, question mark. And I know it's not 90%, it's not 95%. As he previously quoted. It's about 1 in 6 million. Okay. Case in point. Why don't you tell me that in the first place? Jungle jargon has been vindicated again. 1 in 6 million. A 0.000167%. Okay. All right. See if anybody's being bored here. Oh, there we go. Oh, sorry about that. We got adopted cats. Happy New Year. And we got reprove and rebuke. Happy New Year. Otherwise used to be known as Jill. Now he's reprove and rebuke. No, rebuke and reprove. I would get all mixed up. I get all tongue-tied about that. Tongue-tied. Happy New Year. That's what I'm saying. And it is a Happy New Year for the Persian people. It is. See, look here. January 1st, 2006. It's 2006, everybody. Don't forget. 2006. Now, I know this is a boring topic for many people, but I didn't have nothing else to talk about, and I haven't made a video in a while, so figured I had to make a video. It's only 2 hours and a half, more or less. So, I guess with that, that's about it. I bored everybody to death. That's just fine. That's just fine. But I enjoyed it. As long as I enjoy my videos that I make, I'll go back and watch it too. Go back and watch my own video. Nobody else wants to watch it, I'll watch it. Okay, everybody take care. Go with God, as some people might say, go with God. Which is kind of corny, but it's real, it's true. Walk with God, talk with God, and maybe he'll answer you. He says you'll hear a voice behind you saying, go this way, go that way, right? Just might answer you. And it will be true. And we know that he speaks to us because the New Testament tells us that the Spirit of God is sent out into the world to convict the world of sin, righteousness, and judgment. So how is he going to convict the world? By convicting them, by showing them, proving them, convicting them of their sin, righteousness, and judgment. And you can't say that God doesn't do that. So since God clearly says that he does do it, means he does do that, speaks to everyone, everyone's convicted of their sin, and not everyone has the same response. Not everyone has the same reaction. That's what makes the difference. People who follow the truth, people who listen to the truth, hear the truth, and follow the truth, and don't listen to lying spirits all day long in their ear. Don't listen to lying spirits. People, unbelievers, people who don't believe in God, are literally listening to lying spirits speak in their ear all day long. Because they hear this, they hear that, they think this, they think that, do this, do that. They're following lying spirits. Yep. And I should know about things that are not real, things that aren't true. Okay, so I don't know what's going on with this. Is this the same? I guess it's the same. Yeah, as long as it comes out straight on YouTube. I think it comes out straight. It's supposed to be Continental. This is Continental Airlines. This is before it changed to United. Continental Airlines. That's before it changed to United Airlines. Worked there for 30 years. Driving a tow truck between aircraft with a security clearance. Served 4 years in the Army after having been diagnosed as schizophrenic and being told I needed to take a medication. And the diagnosis was correct. There wasn't anything wrong with the diagnosis. Because if you see somebody speaking gibberish and his pupils are dilating like this right in front of you, they have a they have a serious problem. They have a problem, and it probably requires attention. But I self-diagnosed and I self-fixed myself. Anyway, God bless everybody. Take care and have a great New Year. Happy New Year. This is my New Year video on how I recovered from schizophrenia like 40 years ago. 40 years. Worked 30 years. No problems whatsoever. Smooth sailing. No, I can't say that. But yeah, everybody has problems, right? Everybody has disagreements at work and whatever, but if you're younger and you want to get a job, the main thing, more than your skills, the most important thing, more than your ability, more than your skill, is your ability to get along with people. Your ability to get along with people is the single most important skill that you need in order to have a job, to keep a job, and to move up in life and, move up the ladder, so to speak. Because if you can't get along with people, you're always fighting, fussing, you're just going to go from job to job to job to job and not be going up. And if you're so right about everything, you work for yourself and make money for yourself and then fire all your employees or whatever, So anyways, everybody take care, stay close to God, draw near to God. He will draw near to you. God bless everybody. Have a happy New Year. Please. Everybody take care.